After 12 fights, 24 previous fighters, and over a year and a half's worth of chapters, it's finally time for the King of Purgatory, the Monster of Manila, Lolong Donaire, to take the stage and show us what he's made of. In today's video, I'm going to be making some theories and predictions about what I expect to get from Lolong's character, his fighting style, and how things are going to go for him in his fight against Oma. This is going to be different from some of the other recent Lolong videos you've probably seen from other Kengan YouTubers. Is instead of making predictions for the fight between him and Oma, I'm mostly just going to be talking about Lolong himself and what I'm expecting from his character. So without any further ado, let's get right into that. It's been theorized for some time that Lolong was from the Philippines, but with the recent reveal of his epithet, the Monster of Manila, it's confirmed that Lolong is in fact from the Philippines, specifically its capital city of Manila. So there are a few things we could take from this to kind of make some predictions. The first of which is related to Lolong's fighting style, which I'll get into in a little bit. But for the last couple fighters who have had names related to specific locations, that being Nicholas as the Grim Reaper of Paris and Naidan as the Hawk of Ordos, they've all had fighting styles that in some way relate to where they come from. Nicholas made some use of savate, and Naidan practiced Mongolian wrestling, so it's probably going to be safe to assume that Lolong uses some kind of Filipino martial art to some extent. Now, another thing to consider is why this is Lolong's name instead of the King of Purgatory. We've seen Nicholas refer to him as the King. That is his, I guess, secondary title. The reason I think that Lolong is still referred to by the Monster of Manila is because this was his name when he joined Purgatory. This is what he was called when he joined in C rank, just like everyone else, and that has remained his epithet up until now as the King of Purgatory. So I think that Lolong, when we get his flashback, will probably be someone who grew up in a bad area, very poor, probably fighting people on the street all the time. This is how he gets into the underground fighting scene and is recruited by Idemitsu. And I think this is how Lolong becomes part of Purgatory. I think he is going to end up being one of the first members of Purgatory. He definitely feels like someone that has been around for probably just about as long as the promotion's been in business. And that's why he's so established and respected as he is now in Purgatory. I also think that we are almost definitely going to be getting some kind of flashbacks to the Gladiator tournament that crowned Lolong as the King of Purgatory, because we're going to be getting some very important information from that in regards to Lolong's fighting style, specifically how he counters some other fighters. Specifically how he counters Towamudo and Jiroda. These two guys have very conveniently come back to commentate on his upcoming fight with Oma, and I think the reason these two have shown up, other than them being some of the less injured members of Purgatory, is because they are two of the stronger members of Purgatory. I would say that Toa and Jiroda are both very high-tier fighters, and it's quite likely that Lolong had to fight either of them or both of them. I'm pretty sure he fought Jiroda as a finalist in the tournament. And the reason that having these two here as people to commentate on Lolong's fighting style and people he may have fought against in the tournament is because both of their fighting styles have been directly compared to the Nico style. Towamudo's martial art has been specifically compared to the redirection and water kata. His breathing mountain move is kind of like a discount Demon's Bane, and Jiroda's judo has been directly compared to Oma's redirection kata, with I think Oma saying that it's even better than his redirection kata. And this is kind of nuts because redirection is supposed to be the kata that Oma is the best at. He's even better at it than Nico was in his prime. And Lolong has presumably overcome both of these fighters at least one point. So they are going to be providing some very essential commentary as to how Lolong does that, and we're going to see how that allows him to contend with Oma. Now, to get into actual predictions for Lolong's fighting style. Since he is, of course, from the Philippines, it's been quite a few people's safe assumption that Lolong practices some kind of Filipino martial art. I know one of the big ones is known as Kali or Eskrima. This is primarily a weapon fighting martial art, but not exclusively. We've also seen that having to use weapon combat barehanded is not an issue for some purgatory fighters. I know in, I think it was it Weeb's video? I don't know, one of them predicted that Lolong was going to make use of a weapon fighting style, but in a way that doesn't suck, and that's why he hates Yumi so much, is because he's just like a shittier version of himself. He's an asshole. So I think that's a possibility. I know for a fact, in Shrift's video, he predicted that Lolong may make use of dirty boxing, which is apparently popular in the Philippines. We know boxing in general is very popular in the Philippines, so it's quite possible that Lolong practices some variation of boxing. Seeing him use dirty boxing would be very interesting. There's some evidence to suggest that he uses that based on what very little we've seen of his combat when he took down Nicholas and Okoya. So those are both possibilities. Now to get into some of my own personal theories, I predicted a long time ago that Lolong would not practice a martial art at all. He would just do pure street fighting, no designated style. He would just kind of fight. He would use whatever moves are best for the moment without practicing any kind of specific martial art. As we've seen from Kuroki, you can be top tier with very basic techniques. I do think that that's a very likely possibility. I do think it's more likely than not that Lolong's fighting style, whatever it is going to be something that's very simple, but it's efficient. He knows when to use the right technique at the right moment. That is the pinnacle of martial arts. So that's one possibility. Next one is one of the more out there theories I have, but it's that Lolong does not practice a specific martial art, but he is able to pull moves from just about any martial art that he has seen. As the King of Purgatory, Lolong has seen and fought against a wide variety of martial arts, and it's very possible that he has picked up some of the moves from these various styles to use on his own. Think something very similar to Agido. This one I don't want to lean on too much because I do feel like it would just kind of be another Agido, but it could be this, where he uses techniques from other Purgatory fighters' fighting styles, or alternatively, he uses his own fighting style, any of the previous ones I've mentioned. However, he has a number of different techniques that he uses to specifically counter other Purgatory fighters' martial arts, especially helpful in this fight if he uses ones against Chirota and Toa, and that's why he's so goddamn strong. He knows how to counter everyone. He has not talked that much in some of the previous fights against very strong characters who use martial arts they've never shown before, such as Lu Tian and Fei Wangfeng, because Lolong has been busy watching what they do so he can figure out what techniques to use to beat them. Since he's watched Fei's fight, as soon as Oma starts using Nico-style techniques, Lolong's going to realize those are the same moves, and he's already figured out how to beat them. So I do think that is yet another very likely possibility for Lolong's fighting style. Which one do you think Lolong's going to use? Be sure to share it in the comments. We're going to find out who's right very soon. I'm going to be presumably wrong on most of these, or all of them in the very near future, so we're just going to have to find out. Now, what do I think is going to happen in this fight? Specifically, do I think Lolong is going to win or lose? To be quite frank, I have no idea what's going to happen. This is perhaps the most unpredictable fight in all of Kengan. We have the returning main character in perfect health, remembering all the techniques that he learned of the Nico style, as well as presumably having more training with the Kure clan over the last 2 years, so who knows what he learned from them in that time. And on the other hand, we have Lolong, who we have been told is extremely powerful, and have kind of gotten very small glimpses of throughout the tournament, and now it's finally his time to actually show us how strong he is. So, on the one hand, if Oma loses, well, he really won't be that impressive anymore. We'll see what his ceiling is. We'll finally know what healthy Oma looks like. But on the other hand, if Lolong loses, even if he's really strong, all of that hype is going to feel like it was kind of for nothing. Even characters like Jirota, who we did see were kind of strong, or Lu Tien, who we saw were pretty strong, and Toa, this kind of goes for a lot of Purgatory fighters, even if they're really strong, if they lose, the impact of their strength is kind of lost. I've seen this happen with a lot of people's opinions on some of these fighters, is even though they're really strong, a lot of people think they suck, because they lost their first fight. The problem with Lolong is this is not the Annihilation Tournament. This is not like Agito or Kuroki, where they each got multiple fights to show how strong they were before, Agito lost, and Kuroki won the tournament. So, in Agito's case, we had plenty of examples to show us how strong he was before he lost to Kuroki. This made his defeat all the more impactful. And Agito doesn't look weak, because we've had other examples of him winning due to how powerful he is before he finally lost. In Lolong's case, we don't have that. So far, all we have is statements, next to no feats. If he gets all of this hype and then loses, that makes him kind of underwhelming. That makes him a bit of a disappointment. And when I say a bit, that's a really big understatement. That would be kind of a massive disappointment to a lot of people. This is why this is such a difficult fight to predict the conclusion of. Because there are ups and downs to each fighter winning or losing. So I will make the prediction that I find the most enjoyable, that I find the most interesting, the outcome that I would like to see the most, and that is Lolong Donaire winning the fight, very high difficulty. I think seeing Lolong win against a healthy Oma would make all of the hype lived up to. All the hype would be lived up to if Lolong is powerful enough to defeat post-time skip healthy Oma. None of the statements are for nothing. None of the hype is for nothing. It's all for this. It's all satisfied by Lolong winning, even if it's a very high difficulty, because it's against Oma, and we know how powerful Oma is. It's satisfying if it happens that way. Also, I think Kengan getting absorbed by Purgatory, and all of the consequences of that would take the story in an extremely interesting direction. So that is the conclusion I would most like to see. But what do you guys think? For all we know, I'm going to be wrong about, everything I talked about in this video in a couple weeks, so, we're gonna see how well this video ages. But yeah, be sure to share your own theories and predictions in the comments. I look forward to reading them. With that, that's all I have to say for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Kengan Omega chapter reactions and reviews every week. If you enjoy discussing Kengan Omega with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce in this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have linked that down in the description. And since it's the end of the video, it's time to give a shout out to my wonderful patrons. Special thanks to Fuse, Neo, Dijon Redden, Anthony Chavez, Honey Mustard, Zach Rowitz, K-God, Chris Redfield, Scratch23, Rat, Ryzen 4K, Artist, Mac Campaign, Wave of Manga, and Sam the Ace. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And if you too want to get a shout out at some point during the video, or you just want to get access to reviews for solo leveling and the Boxer, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.